Okay. Good afternoon. My name is Donna Marie Collins. I'm the hearing examiner that will be presiding over this afternoon's zoning case, which is a request for a conventional zoning district. I am the final decision maker in conventional zoning cases, so at the conclusion of this hearing, if the record is not left open for any reason, I will be rendering a final decision within the next week or so. I'm ready to begin. Let's administer the oath. To all those intending to speak, do you swear or affirm the testimony and evidence you place into the record this afternoon will be the truth?
Yes, I do.
So for the record, Dan DeLisi. I'd like to start out by making two confessions. The first is, as I came in here and was going to hand the thumb drive to Adam, I remembered that I didn't reformat my presentation for the little box. So I quickly reformatted it, but it's the exact same presentation you have before, substantively, nothing different. It's just formatted so the box fits.
Okay. Am I getting this as an exhibit?
Yes.
Okay.
It's right there in front of you.
Oh, okay.
And the second confession is, even though I've testified.
Wait, I got to pull the grade over.
Yeah, there we go.
Go ahead.
Even though I've testified as an expert witness many times before you, I've never done a conventional rezoning, so I'm really excited to be here today.
Did you want to mention that you were an expert or no?
I have been accepted as an expert.
Are there any other confessions before we begin?
No, that's it. That's it.
Let's go.
Thank you. All right. So this is a property located on the east side of US 41, just north of Pine Island Road. You can see Merchants Crossing is over here on the west in North Fort Myers. Notably, Stockton Road is right here. And this is the Littleton CPD, which this property is part of. And I'll be talking more about that as we go along. So existing zoning history. And let me just, the Littleton CPD is three disconnected properties. This northern piece is on the south side of Littleton Road, and it's disconnected by a separately owned parcel right here, disconnected from this area. And this area is bisected by Stockton Road or Stockton Street, which is public right-of-way from this. And so on the master concept plan, you have development area 1, which is the southernmost development area 2, and development area 3. In many ways, it was a strange CPD that we did back in 2008, approved in February 2009. But it is all one CPD, even though the parcels are not connected or disconnected. It was approved for 138,500 square feet of commercial and 120 hotel rooms. And so what we're talking about today is rezoning this southernmost parcel for community commercial. This was all done, as I said, finished off in February 2009, right before the adoption of the North Fort Myers community plan, the comp plan amendment for the community plan. The land development codes were then done in 2012, a few years later. So the only impact the community plan really had on this area was it created a commercial corridor and directed the development of land development code changes that then happened 3 years later. The land development code changes do affect this area if you're conventionally zoned. So again, we're doing a conventional rezoning of the southern piece of the commercial plan development. We're doing it concurrent with an administrative amendment to reduce the size of the Littleton CPD and do a proportionate reduction of the commercial entitlement in the CPD. Wrong way. This is the criteria of approval. Let me just say the first burning question, I'll get this out of the way, that you might have is what happens to open space and indigenous. You can see on the master concept plan, the indigenous areas are predominantly on the northern two parcels, not on the southern. So removing the southern parcel doesn't have an impact. And the only thing we're doing in the administrative amendment is removing the parcel. We're not changing anything about the plan itself. And then, of course, the conditions that relate to that parcel, we have to change the numbering of the development areas and stuff like that.
That's
but
as part of the CPD.
as part of the
And is
CP.
that being handled administratively? I thought it was. Okay.
Yes, it is. Yep. So all to say that removal of this and rezoning it to conventional commercial doesn't really have an impact on anything else going on in the CPD. So this is the criteria of approval for rezoning applications. Compliance with the Lee plan, we are in the central urban future land use category, defined as the urban core. It allows commercial development. We are in a commercial corridor in the North Fort Myers community plan, and we meet the commercial approval standards in goal 6 of the comprehensive plan. And a lot of these compatibility and urban services are repeated in the additional criteria that I'll go through. This is a conventional zoning, so we are going to have to meet the land development code as it is. We can't ask for any deviations, so all the setbacks, buffers, everything we will have to comply with at the time of development order.
But you still can avail yourself of the administrative deviations that are available during the development order stage, isn't that right? Or no, if you're conventional? Yes. Okay.
Okay.
See, now you know something about conventional.
I do. That was
You can really be an expert.
good. Thank you. That was a good question, and I appreciate that answer from staff. The North Fort Myers Community Plan in Chapter 33 of the Land Development Code does provide for land development provisions, design guidelines. There are buffers that are specific to North Fort Myers that we're going to have to comply with that are more intense than the regular buffers, significantly more intense. Schedule of uses, so we'll be restricted by the community commercial uses plus
So it's
the uses.
a CC minus any use permitted in CC but not authorized in 33-1596.
Exactly, yep. And I believe, I did a review of that while we were going through this process, and if I remember correctly, like flea markets, for example, which you'd never be able to fit on a property like this, but as an example, are permitted in community commercial, but they're not permitted in the North Fort Myers code, so that would not be a use that we would be allowed to do. So we have but there actually are some uses permitted in that schedule of uses for North Fort Myers that aren't permitted in CC. I think they're like C1 uses. So
You wouldn't have those either.
we would not have those either, so we would have the more restrictive of the two. So anyways, we're only allowed the uses in CC consistent with 33-1596, which is the schedule of uses.
Is there intended
Wait,
use
wait,
for
wait.
this parcel at this time?
Yeah, before you leave that page, I just want to ask you about the purple.
Yes. Okay, so this purple is Pine Island Road District. This is in city of Cape Coral. That's where the boundary of Cape Coral comes in.
Where's 41?
This is 41.
All right.
Yeah. And this is intensive development.
And this is central urban.
And we're in central urban.
So Cape Coral comes all the way there now?
It does, yep. Yeah, and actually, there's on this map, you could see this is the Cape Coral.
Yeah. So that
So the,
there's a gas station there. I guess that's in Cape Coral now. Raceway, racetrack.
racetrack,
We digress.
Anyway, just for the record, Pine Island Road District is an intent mixed-use commercial and residential category, correct?
yeah, yep. And so it's intensive development right here, which is, all right. This is a zoning map. So you can see a lot of CPD on the west side of 41. Just to the south of us is the CC zoning district. So we have conventional zone properties all to the south of us, CC, C1, C1, and then here where the Walmart is a CPD. To our west, we have RS1, and this is Pomona Park, RS1 single family district. As I said, we're going to have to comply with the buffer standards in North Fort Myers, which are pretty intense between commercial and residential. Compatibility and surrounding uses, just started going through this, but Pomona Park is here. You have a Walmart just to the south. This is a CVS, I believe. This is a bank that I think is not there anymore, but it's a vacant building. Merchants Crossing. So, you know, significant commercial development all around us, except for on the west, which is Pomona Park, and again, very intense buffer that we'll be providing on the east side of the property. And then to the north, of course, is the remainder of the Littleton CPD. As far as access goes, we have direct access to 41. We also have direct access to Stockton Road. So we'll have to go through permitting through FDOT to get access to 41. But we have excellent access, intersection of two roads, and one of them being 41. And then as far as transportation and meeting any, having the ability to have our impacts offset by county regulations is the requirement. We are going to pay transportation impact fees. This part of the property is previously cleared. There are no environmentally sensitive areas on the site. There are some trees. In the prior CPD, there were just individual trees that we were looking at preserving on the site, but as I said before, the preservation was in the northern part of the CPD because there just wasn't anything on this part of the property. And then as far as urban services go, we are in a highly urban area. We have urban uses on all sides of the property, drawing off of urban services. We did get letters of availability from Lee County Utilities and FGUA, so we can be served by urban services. And with that, that is the end of my presentation.
Okay, thank you. I have no questions. Adam?
Madam Hearing Examiner, good afternoon. For the record, Adam Mendez, Senior Planner with the Community Development Zoning Section. I do have two exhibits I'd like to provide you. One being the staff PowerPoint presentation, which I provided the applicant a copy of, and the other is a color-coded use regulations matrix that I wanted to discuss in this presentation.
Okay, that'll be Staff Exhibit 2. Exhibit 1 is the staff report.
This is a free copy to write on.
Thank you.
And then this is the color-coded use matrix. It's another exhibit.
Okay, use matrix is Exhibit 3. And did you also give a copy to the,
I did. I'd like to begin by stating that I do agree with the testimony you just heard from Mr. DeLisi regarding the findings necessary to grant the conventional rezoning request in this case that we're here before you today to present. I aim to just supplement that with this brief slideshow to point out some things, some findings in the community development staff report that support the recommendation on the floor right now for approval. So we've discussed the surrounding area in context. Mr. DeLisi did go over the PD boundary and the effect of this rezoning and how it will be separated ultimately from this master concept plan. Here's a copy of the current submission on file and that administrative amendment. You can see now there's only 2 areas instead of the 3 areas on the master concept plan. Would also like to note that there will be a proportionate reduction in intensity to make this whole and make it make sense. So the intensity isn't just concentrated on the other 2 development areas. So I'm going to actually flip over to the exhibit I provided you, the color-coded commercial use matrix, and we're going to dive a little further into the comparison with the CC district use regulations and what the North Fort Myers use regulations table does in effect to this property and all property that is located in the commercial corridor. I'm going to walk over the computer just to pull up the PDF slide. So what this table intends to do is, in uses that are shaded green, it's identical to the CC district in terms of how it's listed: permitted by right, not permitted, permitted by special exception, and so forth. The blue represents uses that are not permitted in the CC district, but they are permitted in the commercial corridor use regulations table. And the yellow, which is the less frequent color, are uses which are permitted in the CC district in a manner that is less restrictive than the North Fort Myers commercial corridor, namely bar, cocktail lounge, pawn shop. Some of those uses, if you probe Chapter 33, are recognized as detrimental uses to the North Fort Myers community plan. So they've parceled them out in some occasions where normally it's confined to a use group. Pawn shop's a good example. That's in used merchandise stores, group 1, but it's parceled out in the use matrix for 33-1596. So this is all to say that this table is actually complete. It's a complete table. If you look at uses from A to W, wholesale establishments, it lists all of them in almost the same order. There's a few variations when it comes to, like I said, they parcel out some of those uses which are usually embedded into a use matrix, and they show them here as a separate line item. And then in one instance I did find, and I think Mr. DeLisi found one, where it may list something that isn't listed at all in the CC district. An example would be, I have one here. Temporary parking lots. Below temporary parking lots in table 34-844, there is a use classification that is park and ride. That's not recognized in this table. It's one of the only uses that I found wasn't comparable. But what this exhibit's really intending to do, Madam Hearing Examiner, is to depict to you what the North Fort Myers commercial corridor use provisions are trying to promote. I think Dan kind of made a comparison to CC, and by that virtue, it allows lots of residential uses that the CC district doesn't normally allow. Multifamily being the only residential use, but all of the accessory residential uses that are also parceled out on
Right.
use matrices.
They can only do what's permitted in CC minus what is prohibited on this corridor.
Right.
They don't get to expand the CC realm of uses to include things that aren't on both.
Exactly. This is
So
going
they
to
get
prevail.
CC minus essentially what can't be done in the business overlay.
Yes.
All right, so that's
basically the
yellow.
Yes.
green is good.
So
Green
green minus yellow.
Green means it's listed the same exact way. If you compare the corridor to the commercial corridor regulations, or the corridor to the conventional zoning chart. So if it's listed as permitted in the conventional CC district and it's listed as permitted in the North Fort Myers commercial corridor, it's highlighted green here. If it's not permitted in both tables, it's listed as green here because there's no change. It's a comparison really to the CC district that we're requesting. But what this table or this exhibit does is it really shows that there's more uses that are listed in the corridor, commercial corridor, that are listed as permitted than there are in the CC district. It's a more expansive district. It's a more mixed use district, and it actually allows more intensive commercial uses, repair shops, things of that nature, that the CC district does not list. There are a few uses that I list here in yellow, which the corridor has a more restrictive approach on it, whether it's not permitted or it requires a special exception. But holistically, the commercial corridor is a more intensive district than the community commercial district. Just giving you the context as to how this is going to fit in with the surrounding area. We do recognize that there are community commercial zoning or North Fort Myers commercial corridor zoning just to the south with the BB&T former bank and the Walgreens or CVS that's there at the corner. And so effectively, when looking at this request and also recognizing a recent approval on a nearby corner, or conventional rezoning to C2 at North Tamiami and Pine Island on the southwest quadrant, which was abutting residential, that staff finds that this mix of uses is consistent with the goal and objectives in the North Fort Myers commercial corridor plan, and that it's done in a more compatible manner in this particular piece of parcel as it's bisected in every direction except for to the south by rights of way to provide some space to separate what this is really a compact mixed-use development program that will be afforded to this property as compared to the PD provisions that currently govern it. And so with that all said, staff maintains that position that the requested rezoning to CC furthers the North Fort Myers community plan and does so in a compatible manner consistent with the review criteria for the conventional rezoning. And so with that, I kind of explained my thought process behind this exhibit, and I am available for any questions further on this case. So.
Anything further?
I didn't have any questions.
Okay.
I
Anything?
thought you did a lot of work and that was a good job.
Oh, thanks. It's kind of hard to explain, but I was just maybe for my own mind's sake trying to understand the differences, knowing that the North Fort Myers commercial corridor ultimately rules here.
Right, so it's the CC zoning district as modified by this table in chapter 33.
Yes.
Okay, and they must comply with all the provisions of the community plan as been codified into the land development code, so.
Namely, if you look at tree preservation, that's going to be something that even though they're in a mixed-use overlay, if there's heritage trees on site, they have to preserve them or replace them with 20-foot trees. And looking at the site, if you look at the aerial, it seems like there may be the presence of large heritage trees on the property that they'll have to deal with at time of development order. And so.
Well, they got a lot of acreage to work with, so hopefully they can design around it.
Yes, certainly.
And to me, it seems like an ideal location for commercial services that possibly could benefit not only the traveling public, but also the adjacent community, you know, through some kind of connection.
Yeah.
Pedestrian connection that the plan encourages. Okay. Well, is there anything further you want to get on to the record?
No, I'm good, thanks.
Okay, I mean, I see this as a very straightforward case. It's coming out of a CPD, so normally you'd say it doesn't have the same ability to be compatible with what's around it, but with the North Fort Myers community plan provisions, I think that it's going to be fine. it's looking to me like it's going to serve as some kind of transition from the busy highway to the residential community, and that's something I know the plan favors. So I don't anticipate it taking very long for me to issue a final decision in this case. If there isn't anything further, I will close the record.
Thank you, Madam Hearing